1. Never shine more than the master. Everyone has their own fears, and when you expose yourself to the world and reveal your talents, it's only natural that you provoke all sorts of discontent, envy, and other manifestations of insecurity. You should expect it, but you can't spend your life worrying about other people's small feelings. As for why they are above you, you have to take a different approach. When it comes to power, outperforming the master in radiance is probably the worst mistake ever. Those who reach higher positions in life want to feel safe in their positions and that they are superior to everyone around them in intelligence, prudence, and attractiveness. It is a fatal but common misunderstanding to believe that when you showcase and boast of your talents, you gain the emotions of the master. 2. Don't trust your friends too much and take advantage of your enemies. Voltaire once said, "O God, protect me from my friends, but my enemies I am their guarantor." A man who is suddenly exempted from death in the guillotine is a man who is truly full of gratitude. He will go to the ends of the earth for the sake of the man who has pardoned him, and so it is possible that the former enemies will turn into the most loyal and trusted friends. The late U.S. President Calvin Coolidge said, "There is nothing in the world more than talented people who fail." Lincoln said, "You can crush your enemy's hostility by making him a friend." Don't let the presence of enemies frustrate or degrade you. Your performance with one or two opponents you know well is better than dealing with real enemies you don't know where they come from. The wise man benefits from his enemies more than the fool benefits from his friends. 3. Hide your intentions. Used to achieve your goals by hiding your intentions. Silence the intentions of your actions to confuse those around you and prevent them from cheating or preparing for you. Encourage them to misinterpret your movements. Leave them in the dark so that if they realize what you are going to do, it is too late to hurt or disable you. Part 1. Shade people away from your true intentions by pretending that you want something else. Seduction depends on suggestion and is spoiled by statement and direct speech. Don't let anyone discover that you're being deceived, but make your biggest cunning is to hide everything that might be revealed to others as a scammer. Most people open books, reveal how they feel, and express their opinions on every occasion, and always show their plans and intentions, and they do so for many reasons. 1. Because it's always easy to get caught up in wanting to talk about your feelings and intentions about the future, while the hardest is to keep an eye on your tongue to judge what you're saying. 2. Because many think that their frankness and spontaneity win them the hearts of others and show them their good natures, and this is a dangerous shading because honesty is like a furrow knife that is more bloody than it is cut. Honesty hurts people, and it is wise for people to hear what they like to hear, not what you think or sense of the tragic and ugly truths that hurt them. Most importantly, frankness and spontaneity make you clear and legible to others, and then it is impossible to reap respect and prestige from them, 2 conditions without which no one can gain power. If you want power, give up candor and practice the art of discreetly minding your intentions. You can talk a lot about your desires and goals, but not the real ones. Then you will catch 3 birds in 1 stone. 1. People will see you friendly, open-minded, and trustworthy. 2. Hide your true intentions. 3. Make your enemies strain themselves in chasing illusions. Remember that the best cunning are those who make every effort to hide their deception. They sow honesty on one side to reap what they want from dishonesty in other aspects. Honesty is just an additional weapon in the arsenal of their cunning. Part 2. Deception and cunning are the most important strategies of power, but in order to master deception, you have to use smoke curtains that shade people from your true intentions. And one of the most brilliant of these methods is neutral and familiar facial expressions that reassure others and lure them into the trap that I prepared it for them. 4. Always say less than is necessary. Too much talk loses your prestige and shows you less determined, and even trivial speech will seem more reverent If it is brief, undefined, and open to all interpretations, those in power influence people and intimidate them with the brevity of their words. And the more you speak, the more likely you are to say something trivial or stupid. Leonardo da Vinci once said, "When the moon is full, the oysters open their shell, and then the cancer animal accelerates and puts a stone to prevent it from closing again, and the oysters become his meal." That is the fate of everyone who opens his mouth too much and puts himself at the mercy of the listener. Cardinal de Retz said, "It is more dangerous for a minister to utter follies than to commit them." Power is essentially a game of appearances, and when you save on your words, you inevitably appear stronger than you really are. Silence strains others because people by nature tend to interpret and understand who they are dealing with, and when you underestimate your words, they cannot hack to know your intentions. Your brief answers and silence strains them, puts them on the defensive, and they start to ask explanations about you. Economics in speech is not exclusive to masters and kings, but it gives you an aura of depth and reverence in any area of life. Economics of speech gives your actions and words majesty and power, and reduces your exposure to saying something that threatens your status or even your life. There are times when it is not wise to be silent, especially when dealing with your superiors, as silence may generate doubt and fear of you. 5. Depend on your reputation, protected with your life. Reputation alone can intimidate and triumph, and its fall exposes you to attack and blows from every side. Maintain your reputation and be alert to any attacks hatched against it, and thwart it before you catch it, and learn to destroy your opponents by breaching their reputation, and then let them to the masses to set up gallows for them. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "The surgeon of conscience is easier to heal than the wounds of reputation." People do not completely open their hearts even to their close friends, and some of their qualities remain a secret that they never disclose. So we like to ignore this fact and build our judgment on others by their appearances, and what they seem to our eyes' appearance is the balance of judgments. Once humiliated, clumsy or impulsive change in appearance may cause you disasters. That's why you have to make every effort to create a reputation for yourself that you will be satisfied with, and then maintain. This reputation will protect you from the game of judging by appearances. Reputation has the power of magic. A touch of its super wand doubles your power and distances you from the hatred of haters. At first, you have to seek to establish a reputation based on a prominent trait you have, such as generosity, honesty, or intelligence, and this trait will distinguish you and make people talk about you. Then you have to work to spread this trait among the largest number of people. Then he contemplated it spreading like fire among the wildfire. A strong reputation increases your power and ability without putting in more effort, and it puts around you an aura that earns you respect and prestige. And how much is said that your reputation always precedes you? Reputation is a wealth that you have to carefully make, maintain, and retaliate against all attacks about it. 6. Earn attention at any price. You value things by their appearance, and no one cares about what they don't see. Don't be ungrateful in the crowd so that people don't ignore you. Highlight yourself and differ from others, and draw attention to you by showing status, vitality, or mystery so as not to get lost in the midst of fluid and shy crowds. Hard eye, make your name associated in people's minds with excitement and scandals. Grab attention by making a memorable or even controversial picture of yourself. Fabricate a scandal or do anything else that makes you look legendary and different from ordinary people. Don't worry about the nature of what attracts people to you, because fame of any kind brings power, and it's better for you for people to slander you and attack you than to ignore you. At the beginning of your way to the top, you have to exert all your energy to attract attention, and don't worry about what attracts you fame. Attracting attention, both positively and negatively, is the secret to the success of some individuals. Shining on everyone around you is a skill that no one is born to master, so you need to learn how to ensure that attention is drawn to you. At the beginning of your career, you have to associate your reputation attention and name with a tuft or appearance that distinguishes you from others. This appearance may be a distinctive style of dress or a feature of personality that people like and make them talk about you. Once this perception takes root, you have a place in the sky of fame where your stardom is made. Society needs symbols that go beyond the shortness of life, people who stand out above the usual and above the common. So do not be afraid of your qualities that separate you from others and attract attention to you. It is better for you to tarnish your reputation than for people to ignore you. All professions are governed by this rule, as every profession needs a tinge of review. Be radiant and visible to everyone. He who does not have the privilege of appearing as if he was never born. Part 2. Fabricate for yourself an aura of mystery and awe. In a world where everything has become cliched and ordinary, vague things remain attractive. Never make it easy to know what you're doing or what you intend to do, and don't show all the cards in your hands. Mystery gives your presence majesty and prompts others to guess. Everyone will be watching you to know your next step. Use ambiguity to take people's hearts, seduce them, or even intimidate them. Most people are as easy to read as an open book because they have no control over their words or image, and it is not difficult to predict their actions. Artists and deranged people know the relationship between ambiguity and attracting attention. If your social status prevents you from appearing completely mysterious, at least make sure you don't look completely legible. From time to time, you have to go against what people expect of you. If you find yourself trapped and desperate to defend yourself, you should try something simple. Do something that is difficult to explain or understand. Choose a simple act but carry it out in a way that confuses your opponent, a way that allows for many possible explanations and hides your true intentions. The veil covers the dancer. What it shows excites, and what it hides generates passion. If you don't bark yourself to others, they will seek to understand you. Add a touch of mystery to everything. It is this mystery that will give you majesty. And when you explain something, you're not entirely clear. In this way, he imitates the divine wisdom that makes people wonder and think about what fate will bring. There are times when it is not right to attract attention to you, where you have to avoid fame and scandals. You should not threaten your fame or challenge the fame of those who are higher than you if they are firmly established in their positions. It will not only show you despicable, but also trivial. Never show greed to draw attention, because it shows you shaky and takes away power. And to know that there are times when it is best for you to stay away from the center of attention. When you are in the presence of a king or queen or someone in their destiny, bow down and withdraw into the shadows and never compete with them. 7. Let others do work for you, but always get credit. Use the wisdom and knowledge of others and their pursuit of facts to achieve your goals. This will not only save your precious time and effort, but will give you a miraculous aura of efficiency and speed. And soon those who helped you will be forgotten, and you will remain alone in memory. Don't do yourself what others can do for you. Many fancy that because scientists deal with facts, they are far from the despicable personal rivalries that engulf the lives of the rest of the world's population. Honoring you for any invention is important, and even more important than the invention itself. You have to trust gratitude to yourself and prevent others from impersonating the fruit of your hard work. And to achieve this, you have to keep your innovation secretive until you make sure that the sky is free of birds of prey. Learn to take advantage of the work of others to develop your projects, as time is precious and life is short. If you try to do everything yourself, you'll be exhausted and can't continue to the end. It is better for you to retain your strengths, seize the efforts of others, and work to attribute them to yourself. Of all the jungle creatures, the eagle gets what it wants easily, capturing prey that has been unable to survive themselves and that others have struggled to capture. Pay attention to the eagles that hover around you so that they do not hijack what you have struggled to achieve. 8. Entice others to do what you want. When you get others to do what you want, you have control over them, and better yet, you tempt your opponents to come to you abandoning their own plans. Draw them to you with winnings to have the game cards in your hand, and then attack them and impose your conditions on them. Disarm once said, "When I put the bait to hunt deer, I don't shoot the arrow at the first dabby who comes to smell it, but wait until the whole herd comes." There is a scene that has been repeated a lot in history. A violent leader makes bold moves that gain him enormous power, but gradually his power reaches its peak, and then quickly everything turns against him. In the world of power, you have to ask yourself why you don't control things despite your enthusiasm for solving problems and defeating opponents. The answer is simple. You have to change your wrong idea of power, because you often think that intensity and firmness lead to decisiveness and effectiveness. The truth is that the most successful actions are self-control, distancing yourself, luring your opponents, and following them as they enter the traps that you have prepared for them, because your quest must target permanent and continuous power and not a quick victory. There are two things that are necessary to occupy this situation. One, to control your emotions and never give in to anger. Two, manipulate people's natural tendency to respond angrily when you provoke or mislead them with the right taste. If you can get others to dig their own graves, why dig them for them? 9. Convince with your actions, not by your words. The momentary victories that you think you have achieved by arguing are in fact absurd. The resentment and grudge they leave outweighs in their power and survival any momentary changes in the opinions of others. The greatest power comes from others agreeing with you through your actions without saying a word. Present and do not explain. In the world of power, you have to learn the long-term impact of your actions on others. Words have a cunning ability to make people interpret them according to their whims and weaknesses. Even the best proofs are not confirming, because we all do not trust the elusive nature of words. Even if we agree with someone in his opinion, days later we return to our old opinions for nothing but that we are used to them. Benjamin Disraeli said, "Don't argue. In society there is no place to discuss, but only to show results." 10. Beware of the unhappy so that their bad luck does not pass on to you. The misery of others can kill you. Feelings are as contagious as disease. You may think that they are drowning and that you are helping them, while you are only doing so that you are pushing yourself into disaster. They will bring hardship to themselves and to you too. Let go of them and mingle with the happy and lucky ones until their luck passes to you. The pattern of the infectious personality is not limited to women. It is a trait that is not related to sex, but arises from a deep loneliness and disorder in the feelings and whims of the person, and leaks into his actions and relationships to the person, bringing him disasters and pushing him to destruction and chaos. When you see that someone close to you has these traits, don't argue with him. Don't try to guide him, fix him. Don't introduce him to your acquaintances and friends. Just walk away to protect yourself from the consequences of his company. People are very susceptible to being influenced by the mood, whims, and even ways of thinking of their own people with whom they spend a lot of time. These unfortunate and capricious people who have no hope of recovery have a great ability to transmit their contagion to others, because their temperament and emotions are so intense and influential that they often show themselves as victims, so that at first it is difficult to see their misery of their own making. Before you know the true nature of their problems, you have infected them, and you should never underestimate the risk of infection. Get to know the lucky ones to accompany them, and the miserable ones to get away from them. Do not open your door to misery, no matter how small, because if you do, he will not remain alone, but will drag with him more and more disasters. So do not let the misery of others kill you. 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. In order to maintain your freedom and independence among people, you have to make them need you and depend on you for their happiness and prosperity, and never teach them how to do without you. The goal of power is to get people to do what you want, and when you can achieve it without hurting them but voluntarily making them give you what you want from them, your power will be above touch. The best proof of this is to make sure that they rely on you, that their business weakens and disrupts without you, and that you integrate yourself into the core of their business, so that getting rid of you leads to extreme hardships, or at least to waste precious time training your replacement. Don't be mistaken like many who believe that the best form of power is to dispense with people. Power is a relationship between human beings, and you will still need allies, followers, or even weak guardians to become your facade. Have others depend on you so that getting rid of you means disaster until death. Well, can't imagine his fate without you. There are several ways I prefer to have a talent or creative skill that only you have. Quote from a teacher: keep people dependent on you. You will gain more from their dependence on you than from their kindness to you. Whoever quenches his thirst immediately turns his back on the spring because he is satisfied with it. When people's dependence on you is gone, their kindness and politeness with you ends, and then their respect for you disappears. 12. Disarm with your honesty and generosity. Earn the loyalty of those who care about you, or lift their hostility from you with generosity and honesty. Doing one act that shows kindness and sincerity atonement for you in others and distracts them from dozens of your treacherous actions, and a sincere manifestation of kindness and generosity opens the hearts of even the most suspicious people. Once the heart of your caregiver opens up to you, you can move and manipulate them as you please. A gift made in time acts like a horse that enabled the Greeks to open a Trojan. Distraction is the essence of tricks and intrigues because it distracts people's minds and gives you time and space to do something without them noticing. Behaving with kindness, honesty, or generosity is one of the strongest types of distraction because it eliminates the suspicion of others in you and makes them like children rejoice in any friendly hint. The ancient Chinese used to call it give until you take. Giving you makes a person not notice what you're taking, and that's a trick that has countless practical uses. The effect of honesty is as great as possible when you use it the first time you meet someone, because we are all prisoners of habit, and our first impressions last a long time. If someone believes that you are honest at the beginning of your acquaintance, it will be difficult for them to change their minds, and this gives you a lot of room to maneuver. Honesty is the best way to dispel the defenses of the cautious, but it is not the only way. Any noble act or act of altruism is enough to do the trick. It is rare for people to refuse gifts even from their worst enemies, as gifts caress the spirit of childhood in us and makes us act like children. Cunning empathy should also be a weapon in your machinations. 13. Don't appeal to people for kindness or giving back. Lure them with their interests. If you need help from someone, do not remind them of the donations or assistance you have given them, because this will make them make excuses to evade you. Show them something that will benefit them from the fulfillment of your request and from their cooperation with you, and focus your words on these benefits. If you mask him, you will find him meeting your demands with enthusiasm. Keys to power. In your quest for power, you will find yourself repeatedly asking for help from those who are above you in power and ability. There is an art of asking for help based primarily on your understanding of the nature of the person you're dealing with, and not confusing what you want with what they want. Most people confuse this because their desires and needs confuse their thinking and make them think that those who ask for it do not take into account their personal interest in the help they provide, as if their needs concern them. But the reality is that it may not mean anything to them. Sometimes we find those who seek to achieve their demands in the name of lofty principles and values such as love and gratitude, thus inserting major humanitarian issues into matters governed by simple daily realities. What they don't know is that all people, even the most powerful ones, are governed by their own needs, and if you don't address their interest, they will see in their listening to you nothing but an inconvenience, or at least a waste of time. Interest is the lever with which people move, and if you make it clear to them that you have the means to achieve for them what they wish for or what they seek, they will not refuse to give you all the help you want. Every step of the way to power, you have to train yourself to understand the mentality of those you're dealing with, to know their needs and interests, and to get rid of the cover of your feelings and whims that obscures the truth from you. The rope of gratitude and compassion is a weak, flimsy rope that breaks from the first shock. The rope of interests is twisted by many threads that do not break easily and will save you and serve you for many years. 14. Courting as a friend to watch as a spy. It is fateful to discover the secrets of your competitors, and you have to assign them spies who bring you their news so that you take precedence over them. And it's best to spy for yourself. At social events, act like a secret investigator and ask questions in tactful and subtle ways so that people reveal their intentions and weaknesses to you. Take every opportunity to discover the secrets of those around you. The ruler sees with his spies, the cows see with their noses, the clergy see with the sacred text, and the rest of the people see with their own eyes, says Cordelia. Keys to power. In the world of power, your goal is to control what the future might bring. Part of the problem is that people don't reveal what's in their thoughts, feelings, and plans for the future. The result is that you do not predict their movements and always act with your eyes closed. Intelligence is to find a way to explore their secrets and hidden intentions without noticing that you are spying on them. This is not as difficult as you imagine, as by showing courtship you can secretly collect information about friends. The most common way to spy is by using others, but it's dangerous as they may discover the secret of your spying and turn against you. The best way is to become a spy for yourself. By luring people to certain actions, you can learn a lot about their sincerity, honesty, and other qualities, and this is the best way to anticipate their future actions. Spying is a third eye. Now you need to know that what makes a wise ruler or commander conquer the enemy whenever he meets him is their ability to see the enemy's conditions, and this insight does not come from the summons of spirits or divine revelation, but derives from people who know the conditions of the enemy well. 15. Completely destroy your enemy. All the great leaders since Moses have known that the feared enemy must be completely crushed, and if you leave one burning ember, no matter how dark it burns, it will eventually break out. The enemy will recover and seek revenge. Crush it not only physically but also in the soul. After the author recounted the story of the Chinese war and revenge against the enemy as an evil revenge by erasing them from their hearts, he said, "This is the fate of all of us if we sympathize with our enemies and take them with pity or hope of reconciling with them. And if this makes us reluctant to get rid of them, it will only strengthen their fear of them and their hatred of us. When we tolerate enemies whom we have defeated in the midst of their pride, we are like raising the snakes of hatred that are once strengthened to kill them. Whoever wants to accomplish has to give up mercy," Cotelia said. "Your enemies wish you evil, and there is nothing I love about them than getting rid of you. And if you fight them, and then stop in the middle or even 3/4 of the way because of mercy, or even in the desire to reconcile with them, you have tightened their resolve and their bitterness against you, and they will return to take revenge on you one day. Example, the snake that you crush with your foot and does not die will returns to you and bites you with double poison." 16. Master the art of absence to increase your appreciation and status. The commodity that is promoted among people decreases in price, and the more you are present in your words, the more vulgar your status and the less prestige you have. Once a group has a good opinion about you, you have to withdraw until they talk more about you and like you. You have to learn when you're absent so that your value rises with the rarity of your presence. At the beginning of any relationship, you need to confirm the sense of your presence with the other party, and if you keep yourself out of sight at this early stage, it is easy to forget you. But as soon as the feelings of those you like move and crystallize their feelings towards you, and your feelings towards them, and not showing reasons for absence is the strongest effect. When you are absent, the lover wonders if he has made a mistake, and in the distance his fantasies flow and overflow, and the excitement of imagination only ignites the flames of feelings. The forbidden and the rare attract our respect and appreciation for him, and what burdens us with his resident presence weighs on us and makes us ascetic and despise him. Keys to power. Everything in the world depends on presence and absence. A strong presence brings you attention and power. It stands out more than those around you. But inevitably there comes a moment when your presence backfires and more of your visibility and speech reduces your status and you become something usual. One of the daily aspects of this rule that stands out for its credibility is the rule of scarcity in the world of economics and markets. When a certain commodity is withdrawn in the market, its value increases. Take advantage of the rule of scarcity in your skills and make what you offer the world rarely accessible, and will increase the value of what you offer and your value. Example, the sun only appreciates its value when it sets, and the longer the rainy days, the more we long for the sun. But in the summer, the sun becomes ever-present and annoying. Teach yourself to hide and make people long for your return. Use absence to reap respect and appreciation, as presence extinguishes fame and absence fuels it. A man whom people consider a lion in his absence sees him as trivial and vulgar if his presence is repeated. Talents lose their value when people get used to them because they will see the creator's dry and ordinary personality and not his delicious creations, and even super geniuses benefit from distance and from people's nostalgia for them because this adds another splendor to their splendor. 17. Terrorize others with surprise and break expectation. People are governed by habit and love to become familiar with the actions of those around them because it gives them a sense of control. Confuse them and confuse them with your intentions with sudden and incomprehensible behaviors, because this will strain them in interpreting your movements and instill fear and dread. Keys to power. Nothing scares people more than sudden and unexpected things, and this is what makes us frightened by earthquakes and hurricanes, because we do not know when they hit us, and if we hit one of them, we mislead, expecting in horror another to happen. An unexpected human behavior affects us in the same way, but to a lesser extent. Animals behave in a consistent way, so it is easy for us to anticipate their actions and hunt them. Man is the only being capable of changing the patterns of his behavior and improving them willingly. You have to know that the people of power instill dread in those around them by deliberately provoking and straining them so that the initiative remains in their hands. You sometimes have to hit without warning or introductions to make others tremble. Breaking expectations is often a basic tactic for gentlemen and guardians. Pablo Picasso said, "The best calculation is not to count after you have achieved a certain level of fame and appreciation. People expect that everything you do is planned and shows intelligence, and then it becomes stupid to plan your steps in advance with excessive accuracy, and it is better for you to act with the inspiration of the moment." Breaking expectations is not only a weapon of intimidation. The complexity of the pattern of your actions attracts the attention and interest of others in you, makes them talk about you, and attributes to your actions motives and explanations that have nothing to do with the truth, but that always keeps you in their minds. Conclusion: the more arbitrary you look at in your actions, the more respect and appreciation you earn. The only submissive people act according to the expectations of others. Example, hurricane. Unpredictable winds cause sudden changes in pressure, direction, and speed, and there are no defenses to stop them, so hurricanes cause us panic and confusion. 18. Don't build castles to protect yourself. Solitude is dangerous. The world is a dangerous place full of enemies, and everyone has to protect themselves. You may think that immunization secures you, but isolation adds more to the risks than it protects against them. It makes it harder for you to obtain precious information and stands out as an easy target for attack. It's best to walk around among people, mingle with them, and make allies among them. Crowds are the real shield with which to shelter from enemies. Isolation harms the mind and does not benefit virtue. And you know that a secluded person is always luxurious, often flying, and sometimes crazy. Machiavelli proved that from a purely military perspective, building fortresses and sheltering them is always a strategic mistake, as they restrict the capabilities of those who build them and are an easy target for their enemy. They build them to protect you, but they cut off aid from you and limit your flexibility. In the language of strategy, fortresses do not provide any protection and create more problems than they solve. Human beings are social beings by nature, so power depends on dealings and social mixing, and in order to gain power, you have to put yourself at the center of events. Most people make mistakes when threatened by dangers and resort to isolation and closure to their close acquaintances as a fortress or sanctuary that makes them feel safe. In times of suspicion and danger, you have to resist this desire to turn inward and be more open to others. 19. Know who you are dealing with so as not to infect anyone with ignorance. The world is full of different types of human beings, and do not think that everyone will respond to your strategies in the same way. There are people who, if you deceive or manipulate them, will spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge on you. They are wolves in the skins of lambs. Well, choose your prey and opponents so as not to put your hand in a snake stone. Introductory classification. On your way to power, many types of opponents meet, and you have to differentiate between wolves, lambs, foxes, rabbits, hawks, and eagles. If you deal randomly, you'll spend the rest of your life in constant heartbreak. Here are the 5 most dangerous patterns of those you might lure into the forests of power. 1. The arrogant or arrogant. Contrary to what may appear to you at the beginning of dealing with this person, he becomes very dangerous if he sees something that hurts his sensitive pride. What he may think is a mockery of him responds to him very violently. That you may be asking yourself, it doesn't matter what you might say. There is no logic in this person's reactions, so don't waste your time on explanations. Anytime, if you see that your person you are dealing with has an exaggeration of sensitivity and pride, stay away from them, and whatever you hope for them, it is not worth the risk. 2. Always the loser. This type of people is close to the arrogant but less violent and difficult to recognize quickly. This type of person has a fragile personality and does not trust himself, and if he feels that someone is deceiving him, his sense of injuring is inflamed and he begins to attack you with hidden blows that gradually strengthen before you notice them. This type you have to stay away from for a long time, because if you stay close to it, it drains you until it kills you. 3. Skeptical. This pattern is another variation of the 2 previous patterns, and he sees in the actions of those around him what he wants to see, and often what he sees is the assumption of the worst intentions and the belief that everyone is trying to hurt him. The suspect is the least of the least dangerous patterns mentioned, and because he is troubled, it is easy to deceive him and manipulate his skeptical nature to turn him away from you to other people. And if you become a target for his doubts, you have to watch him and pay attention to yourself. 4. The snake whose revenge is unforgettable. If you hurt or deceive a man of this type, he will not show you any angry reaction, but he will calculate and wait, and when the right time comes, you will find him carrying out his revenge calmly, skillfully, and without mercy. 5. The simple dull person. This man is a lot harder to deceive than you think. The degeneration of this style of man is not in that he may hurt you or take revenge on you, but in that he will waste your time, effort, resources, and even your mental balance in trying to deceive him. There is a test for this type of man, that is to tell him a joke or a tale. If you see that he interprets it literally without understanding the meaning or gesture, it means that it is from the dull pattern that we have described, and you have to leave it alone. 1st violation. Never think that the person you are dealing with is weaker or less important than you. Some people have dreams and slow to show severity, and this should not tempt you to misjudge them and think that they are without chivalry and dare to insult them. If you want to reject anyone's request, reject it politely and respectfully, even if you see in the request rudeness or absurdity, and do not repel anyone with arrogance and insult if you do not know it well. You may be facing the most difficult people. 2nd violation. Most people accept being circumvented with a kind of acquiescence, learning the lesson, and content themselves with losing because nothing comes for free. But there are others who never acquiesce, and instead of regretting their naivety and greed, they see in themselves only completely innocent victims. Such men men see themselves as heroes defending rights and dignity. The third violation, you can never be sure of the status of the person you are dealing with, because what little is important today may be a food with great power, and we as human beings forget a lot. But do not forget the insult, the keys to power. The most important skills needed to gain and retain power is the ability to read people and to know the nature of those you deal with, without which you get stuck in the dark. You may think you're complimenting people to actually find that you're insulting them. Before you start any action, determine precisely the nature of who you are dealing with, whether it is an adversary or a victim, without which you lose time and make mistakes. Never rely on your sense or acumen to evaluate your opponents. You will make annoying mistakes if you rely on these inaccurate indicators. Nothing goes without specific information. Never trust appearances. Whoever has a snake heart may always show kindness and empathy so that people do not discover his secret, and the person you see a lot of conflict and threat to others is often in fact a coward. You have to teach yourself to see the contradictions in external manifestations and extrapolate what lies beneath the surface, and never trust the image that people give themselves. It is completely misleading. Example, the hunter does not set the same trap for the wolf and the fox. He knows precisely the habits of his prey and their hiding places, and uses this knowledge to hunt them. Be confident that no one is less valuable and important than you. Ever need his skill and experience that he will not give you if you despise him. People forget what has been done to them, but never forget who treated them with contempt. 20. Don't commit yourself to no one but yourself. Only idiots are quick to side with one of the parties to the conflict. To make your loyalty to yourself only, and do not commit yourself to supporting anyone. Maintaining your independence makes you dominate others, and your incitement to conflict with them all makes them all ask for your support. Part 1. Don't commit yourself to loyalty to anyone, but have everyone courtship you. Feeling that others own you in any way loses you power over them. The lack of sincerity of your feelings to anyone makes people seek to please you and win your company. Continue to be reticent and independent, and you will gain the power that comes from their focus on you and from their inability to include you with them. Act as the Virgin Queen did, from them with hope, but never satisfy their desires to own you. Queen Elizabeth said, "I'd rather be a single beggar than a married queen." Keys to power. Power depends heavily on appearances, so you have to learn tricks that improve your image. One of these tricks is to refrain from committing yourself to a person or a group, and when you distance yourself from yourself, you do not provoke anger in others, but respect and appreciation, as this shows you in their eyes disobedience, and not subject to anyone or relationship, unlike the majority of people. And with time, an aura of power grows around you, and with the increase of your fame for independence, many who want to accompany you are attracted to you in the hope of being able to earn your loyalty to them. Gravity is like a virus. When we see someone most people accept, we also find ourselves attracted to it. The moment you commit yourself to someone, the magic goes away from you, and you become like everyone else. You'll find people making all sorts of cunning and subtle ways to make you pledge loyalty to them. They may give you gifts or shower you with services. You have to encourage their interest in you, but don't pledge to anyone at all costs. If you aspire to power and influence, you have to put yourself in the middle of the conflicting forces. One party tempts you to promise to support him, and you will find the other party approaching you also, in pursuit of superiority over his enemy. And because all parties compete to attract your attention, you will appear before everyone as someone with influence and power, which is greater than any power you would have gained from the commitment of any party. Stay independent and reticent, and you'll find people flocking to you, seeing winning your affection as a challenge that motivates them. Queen made a circle of attraction, attention, and admiration around her, but she never succumbed to a courtship but made them all circle around her like cups that never leave her orbit around the stars and never reach her. Don't commit yourself to anyone or to anything because that makes you a slave to everyone. First of all, you have to take care of freeing yourself from obligations or pledges because it is the means by which others put you under their control. Part 2. Don't commit yourself to loyalty to anyone and lift yourself from getting involved in the struggles of others. Don't let others lure you into their petty disputes. Show them interest and support, but you have to remain neutral. Let them wrestle and take care of yourself. Watch and wait. The conflict will strain them and they will be ready to pick like mellow fruits. Once you enter a fight that is not of your choice, you lose the initiative and your interest becomes tied to the outcome of the conflict and turns into a tool in the hands of the conflict. You have to control yourself and suppress your natural tendency to take sides and get involved in the conflict. An old Chinese proverb, when the elk fights, the hunter wins the spoils. Keys to power. In order to gain power, you have to control your emotions. But even when you have that control over yourself, you can't control the mood impulses of everyone around you, which poses a great danger to you. Most people fluctuate in spirals of emotions that result in quarrels and conflicts, and controlling yourself and distancing yourself from the trifles of others can upset them. They try to lure you into the spiral of conflict and beg for your support in their never-ending battles or to mediate peace between them. On the other hand, you can't completely isolate yourself from other people's tensions, as it may cause them insults that you don't need. In order to play your role well, you have to express your interest in the problems of those around you and sometimes even show your support for them. But while your external hints express support, you have to maintain your energy and balance from the inside by not getting emotionally involved with any party. And no matter how much others try to lure you, never make your interest in their affairs, and trivial disputes exceed interest. Service. In conclusion, there are times when it is wise to give up pretending to support or support someone, but to clearly declare your independence and self-sufficiency, as the show of independence with opinion is of particular benefit to those who wish to gain the respect of others. And remember, your only wealth is effort and time, and every moment you waste in the affairs of others is deducted from your wealth. You may be afraid that people will condemn you as a dull person with no heart, but holding on to your independence and self-sufficiency will give you more respect and put you in a position of power. Know that the real courage is to avoid fighting conflicts and not to win them. And when you see a fool inserting himself into conflict, do your best to distance yourself so as not to add another fool to him. 21. Entice your prey by pretending to be less intelligent than them. No one likes to appear stupid or less intelligent than those they are dealing with, but it is true cunning to make the person you lure feel that they are not only intelligent, but that they are superior to you intelligently. Once he is convinced, he will not doubt or expect what you are thinking in secret. No one can afford to feel that someone is more intelligent, and we usually justify this to ourselves in many ways, because knowing him is a knowledge of books, but my knowledge is from my experience of real life. Or because his parents paid a lot to teach him in the best schools and universities, and if my parents were that rich or I were luckier, I would have surpassed him. If you pay attention to this amount of people's attention, you will know that you should always avoid deliberately or inadvertently insulting the mental abilities of everyone you deal with, which is a mistake that no one forgives. But you can harness this rule in your favor to open the door to all sorts of intrigue and deception by insinuating to others that they are smarter than you are, and even pretending to be somewhat idiocy, and you can then drag them by the necks without them noticing their suspicion and caution. There is a Chinese proverb that says, "You disguise yourself like a pig to hunt a tiger," and the origin of the proverb is an ancient hunting method in which the hunter wears skin and a pig's snout and gnaws at the sound of a pig, and the mighty tiger thinks that a pig is on his way and lets him approach and drool, expecting the easy meal to come to him. But in the end, it is the last laugh of the hunter. Intelligence is the clearest quality you have to mitigate, but you shouldn't stop there. Aesthetic taste and mastery are as close to intelligence as you are on the scale of vanity. Show others that they are more capable than you, and that will paralyze their caution towards you. Claiming naivety and inattention works miracles. You have to learn to take advantage of stupidity. The wisest people sometimes use this trick, and there are times when omission is the pinnacle of wisdom, not ignorance, but pretending to be ignorant. 22. Evade acquiescence to turn your weakness into the power. When the weakest do not resist or fight out of dignity, choose instead to acquiesce. Acquiescence gives you time to recover and undermine your enemy's comfort in secret, and wait until his power is gone. Don't give the arrogant the pleasure of defeating and crushing you. Make acquiescence within your arsenal of tricks to gain power. Cardinal de Retz said, "The weak are those who never compromise when it is in their interest to concede." In the parable of Ethiopia, when the great master passes, the wise peasant bends deeply, and in sarcasm and silence releases a wind from his ass. Keys to power. In the world of power, most problems come from over-responding to the movements of enemies and competitors, which are problems that are easy to avoid if we stick to rationality and control our emotions. And our over-response bounces back on us because it also makes our enemies over-respond to us. The essence of the trick of acquiescence is, from within you remain solid and firm, and from the outside you show surrender and submission and deprive your enemies of any reason for anger, which confuses them and reduces their chance of responding violently so as not to force you into counter-violence. We have seen before that submission may yield better results than fighting. When you face an opponent stronger than you and see that your defeat is inevitable, acquiescence is better than running away, because running away saves you temporarily, but in the end the aggressor realizes you. But acquiescence makes you bend over yourself like a snake and then bite him with a deadly bite when he approaches and reassures you. 23. Focus your blows so you don't waste your efforts. Keep your strength and energy focused on touching strokes. One precious catch is better than a lot of crumbs. Power always overcomes many, and if you're looking for someone to take care of you, always look for someone who can benefit you a lot for long periods. And don't distract yourself from too many little shepherds. Keys to power, Schopenhauer said, thought depends on intensification and deepening, not on extension and expansion. Napoleon knew the value of focusing on the enemy's weakest point, which was the secret to his superiority in battle. Focus on one goal or task and don't deviate from it until you achieve it. Arrow, you can't hit two targets together with one arrow. If you confuse your thinking, you mistake the enemy's heart. Without concentrating your abilities, mind, and body, your arrow cannot penetrate the heart. 24. Master the role of a follower. The qualities of the courtier make him flourish in the realm of reality, where all people and all things are determined by power, ingenuity, and politics. These qualities make the elite man excel at cunning, flattery, showing subservience to his superiors, and enabling him to impose his power over others in the most subtle and graceful way. Master the rules of the elite community, and no borders will stand in the way of positions you can define in the court of leaders and influencers. Rules of elite dealings. 1. Avoid bragging about yourself. It is never wise to talk too much about yourself or to overstate your achievements. Talking too much about your potential makes people doubt you and stir envy in the hearts of your comrades. 2. Practice showing confidence and control. Don't show others that you're struggling to get work done. You have to make them think your creativity flows automatically so that they see you as a genius and not a workaholic person. 3. Save on flattery. You may see that your superiors don't get bored of flattering them, but exaggerating the things that others want loses interest in them. and generate suspicion and aversion to your colleagues. 4. Be sure to draw attention. There is something like a contradiction here, because you have to avoid imposing yourself rudely on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have to make sure that people pay attention to you. 5. Address people as much as their stature and minds. It is wrong to think that if you talk to everyone in the same way regardless of their status, you will look like an example of civility. Those who are below you will feel that it is a concession from you. Those who are higher than you will feel offended even if they do not show you it. 6. Never make yourself an ominous omen. 7. Do not behave warmly and intimately with your parents. Your boss does not want to get the work done, friends. But followers, do not dare to treat him as if he is your best friend or that you have a special distinction in his treatment. And if he chooses to treat you at this level, treat him with hesitation and caution or commitment to safety, and maintain the distance between you. 8. Don't say criticism of those who head you. This rule doesn't need to be explained, but you often face circumstances where you have to express your objection, because your silence will expose you to risks of another kind. Learn to make your criticism as polite and tactful as you can. 9. Save on asking for services from your superiors. Nothing provokes a guardian more than uttering a request to one of his followers, because it makes him feel guilty and resentful. Limit your demand for services as much as you can, and better yet, work on the merit of what you want so that the ruler willingly gives it to you. 10. Do not always mock the appearances and tastes of others. One of the basic qualities that a good elite man should possess is a tendency to have fun and the ability to caress friendly. There are times when you need to act with some vulgarity in order to attract others, but you have to stay away from any kind of mockery of the appearance or taste of others, as these things are very sensitive, especially to those who head you. And don't even try to do it away from them. It's like digging your own grave. 11. Don't rush to spelling others. If you're always critical and spelling your colleagues or subordinates, something like a cloud that follows you wherever you go, and you'll find others upset every time you launch your spelling. 12. Be a mirror of yourself. You can use other people's opinion of you as a mirror, but it is not entirely honest, so you have to become a mirror of yourself by training your mind to see yourself in the minds of others, to know your actions. 13. Control your emotions. You have to train yourself to become like a theater actor, able to cry and laugh according to your will and at a time that benefits you, and you have to hide feelings of anger and distress as well as feelings of satisfaction and admiration. Control your facial expressions. 14. Fashionable. Show a monstrosity of the spirit of the past that has a magical effect. 15. Be a source of delight for others. This is a fateful trait because one of the rules governing human nature is that we run away from disturbing and unpleasant things and are attracted towards what makes us feel as cheerful as butterflies are attracted to the flame of light. Because life is bleak and unbearable without sources of joy, you will find that for others, like water and air, you have become indispensable. 25. Reshape yourself. Do not accept the roles that your society imposes on you, but create for yourself a new entity by creating an identity that attracts people's admiration and interest. And be careful not to make your audience bored of you at all. Control your image with others and do not let others determine your perception of yourself. Using theatrical methods of talking and moving will increase your power, and people will no longer see you as ordinary humans, but as the closest myths. 26. Do not pollute your hands with despicable and wise deeds. You always have to show an example of civility and competence. Make sure that your biography among people is free of mistakes and shameful actions, and learn to hide your involvement in taking others as scapegoats and claws of a cat. Part I. Hide your mistakes and look for a scapegoat to blame. Your reputation depends more on what you hide than on what you advertise. Everyone makes mistakes, but the dexterous is the one who knows how to hide his mistakes. Keys to power. The use of the scapegoat is as old as civilization itself. It is of deep human nature their tendency to dispense themselves with error and crime, and to seek a scapegoat for whom to bear blame, and responsibility. The fool is not the one who commits the foolishness, but the one who cannot hide it. Part 2. Use cat's claw. The myth tells us that when the donkey wanted to get the pistachios out of the fire, he grabbed his friend's cat's paw to get what he wanted without burning himself. So if you have to do something hateful or don't please people, don't risk doing it yourself, but hire someone who is doing the dirty work for you. Kotela said, one should not always take straight and straightforward ways of dealing with the things of life. Look at the forest and you'll find that the trees that stand straight are being cut down, while the twisted trees remain. The keys to power. A true man of power is one who never appears overburdened or hasty to get things done, and while others perish themselves at work, he enjoys spending quality times because he knows how to find people who make an effort about him and keep him away from dangers. 27. Take advantage of people's need. Have followers. Ritual followers. Humans have an irresistible desire to believe in something, and you have to make yourself an inspiring symbol of their hopes and pride in themselves by offering them a reason or cause for which to exert themselves. Give them ideas that excite their enthusiasm with words that do not specify, that preach and do not alienate. Make their passion and poetics outweigh logic and realism. Make rituals for them to perform and ask that they make sacrifices in your name. Because when people's faith are weakened, your doctrine will give you unfettered power over them. The science of sorcery. 5 simple steps attract followers. 1. Make your speech simple and likely to have more than one meaning. 2. Address the senses and sights, not the mind and thinking. 3. Learn from established religions how to organize your group. 4. Discreet your source of income. 5. Create for your group an enemy that unites and hates them. 28. Carry out your plans boldly and without hesitation. Don't start a certain path of action without being confident in its results. Doubt and hesitation weaken your performance, and succumbing to fear destroys you. It is better for you to step forward boldly, because the mistakes that courage makes you can solve with more courage, and all people respect the brave and confident, and no one reveres cowards. Audacity makes things easier for you, while hesitation puts obstacles in your way. 1. The best lie is bold. No one is without weaknesses, and our efforts cannot be complete, but daring has the effect of magic in hiding shortcomings and flaws. 7. 2 wolves are wrapped around frightened and hesitant prey. People have an innate sense to discover the weakness of others. If in your first interviews you show any willingness to compromise and complacency, you will find wolves emanating from within, even those you think are the most kind people. 3. Audacity gives you power to intimidate others. Audacity makes you look bigger and stronger than you really are. 4. Progress. With a frightened heart that digs the grave for its owner. 5. Hesitation creates gaps and boldness fills them. When you stop to think before making your decision, you will open a gap for others to think about their turn. 6. Audacity distinguishes you from the herd. It makes you look exceptional and different. Cowards are not noticed by anyone in the crowd. Keys to power. Most humans are cowards who avoid conflict and tension and are keen to retain the love of others. We all think about doing bold actions, but rarely do them because we are afraid of the consequences of how people perceive us and the hostility we may generate if we dare to go beyond what others are accustomed to of us. We may hide our cowardice under slogans like we care about others and don't like to hurt them or hurt their feelings, but the truth is the opposite, because its source is our concern for ourselves and our fear for it from what others may see in us. Few people are born brave and bold. You have to train and develop your boldness, and you will find many benefits. And the best arena for training it is often the world of delicate negotiations, especially those that require you to set the price you choose. If boldness is not natural, so is cowardice, both of which are acquired habits that we choose to avoid conflict. I have no doubt that it is better for a human being to be reckless than to be careful, because fortunes, like a woman, can only be subjugated by force. They give themselves only to those who dare, and not to those who move rationally and coldly. 29. Plan everything in advance from start to finish. Don't start a certain path of moves without being confident in its results. Skepticism and hesitation weaken your performance, and succumbing to fear destroys you. It is better for you to go forward boldly, because the mistakes that courage makes can be solved with more courage, and all people respect the brave and confident, and no one reveres cowards. Most people are governed by their hearts, not their minds, and their ambitions are cloudy, confused, and improvise when faced with difficulties. But improvisation will only lead you to more predicaments, and it does not spare you from sound thinking and planning in advance all the steps necessary to achieve the goal. What's the point of having the best dreams in the world if others are going to reap the rewards and glory from you? Never preoccupy yourself with confused dreams, but plan ahead of time what it takes to achieve what you want from start to finish. The simple reason why most men don't stop attacking is that they don't set their goals accurately, and once they get a victory, they're hungry for more. Those of us who can manage and plan several next steps and be patient to implement their plans until they achieve their goals have great power. If we saw distant dangers brewing, we would be able to avoid many mistakes and to abandon many schemes that might save us from a nearby crisis and then expect us to be in a bigger crisis. Most of the power comes not from what we do, but from what we avoid. That from giving up impulsive and foolish actions before they cause us problems. The conclusion is the one that determines who receives glory, wealth, or prize. And from the beginning, you have to see the conclusion of things clearly and focus on it all the time. How easy it is for us to avoid getting into something than to get ourselves out of it. 30. Act gracefully and never show your suffering to get things done. You have to show your achievements as spontaneous and born of natural talent, and hide all your toil and training and circumvention to achieve what you want. Have others see that you are easily overcoming difficulties, as if you can do much more. Resist the temptation to tell people about your fatigue and dedication, because it makes them doubt your ability. Don't reveal your tricks and methods to them, because it may enable them to use them against you. One house of poetry needs hours of effort, but you seem to shine as a spontaneous thought that wastes all these efforts of systems and erasure. Children's ability to arouse our feelings and harness our will to their advantage is due to their ability to seduce us spontaneously and do what they want without thinking. Of course, we will not be able to return as children again, but if we show spontaneity and act as if we have not thought or strained ourselves in what we do, others feel with us that primitive sense of the magnificence and influence that nature evokes in humans. Spontaneity is useful for all forms of power, because power depends on appearances and on what others have imagined. 31. Control the playing cards. Let others choose from the choices you select for them. The best way to lure people in and control their will is to ostensibly give them the freedom to choose, when in fact you make them a toy in your hand, by making their choices in the alternatives that are all in your favor, or by putting them between the horns of a dilemma so that they choose between two bittersweet evils. You will marvel that their sense of freedom of choice makes them accept things that they would have rejected vehemently if it had been imposed on them. Words like freedom, choice, and alternatives suggest much more potential than they actually benefit us. Unlimited choices paralyze people's thinking and make a decision, and they feel comfortable choosing between a few alternatives. Here are a list of common methods. 1. Mo alternatives. 2. Tap on who resist. 3. Playground manipulation allowance. 4. Shrink goods. 5. The trick of the weak man on the brink of the abyss. 6. The trick of the accomplices in crime. 7. The horn of the dilemma. 32. Address people's hopes and dreams, not their reality. Most people like to ignore facts because they are painful and ugly, and they look at those who make them poetic and imaginary as an oasis in the middle of a desert to which they scramble in droves. Learn to move in people their hopes and dreams, and you will reap great power. David Hume said, "A person won't be unable to get people to believe in their most absurd opinions if they have the ability to show them in an attractive way. Keys to power. Dreams are not enough alone and need to deal with reality and persist tirelessly or boredly, and conquering reality for us is what gives dreams their power and profound impact. A person who can make a dream out of the cruelty of reality deserves enormous power. 7. Although people and times change, there are a limited number of facts that conquer people, which we present below, and present with them the opportunities offered by obtaining power. 1. Reality change occurs gradually and slowly, and effort requires conciliation, a great deal of self-devotion, and greater patience. 2. Dreaming. With one fell swoop you can change your life slowly, and you don't need hard work, luck, dedication, or waiting. A lie is something that man invents and decorates to arouse dreams in the soul and may enter him into a mystical ecstasy, while reality is frustrating and gloomy and does not please anyone with its taste. What people hate the most is the one who always reminds them of their reality and does not provoke dreams and romance in them. I have always found that imagination and dreaming are much more profitable and exciting than telling the truth. 33. Discover the weaknesses of everyone you work with. Every human being has a weakness and a breach in the shield by which he protects himself, often in the form of a creak, a hue, an unbridled desire, or a buried pleasure. Once you discover a person's weakness, you can exploit it to your advantage. We all have something to hide and resist being seen by others, and we set shields with which to protect ourselves from the curiosity of friends and adversaries and from their intrusion into our secrets, and we like to do what we want freely without coercion or influence from anyone. Your constant attempt to break this resistance in others costs you a lot of effort, and the most important thing you should know about people is that they all have weaknesses and breaches of their psychological defenses that cannot resist, and make them do what you want if you discover these breaches and put pressure on them. Some people openly declare their weaknesses while others are keen to hide them, and I pray that it is often more useful for you to control those who hide their weaknesses by detecting and exploiting breaches in their defenses. When planning an attack, you have to observe the following principles. 1. You need to pay attention to unconscious hints and gestures. Sigmund Freud said, "No one on earth can hide a secret, for when the lips of his fingertips are silent, the secrets leak from him from every gap." The secret is not in what you're looking for, but in the way you're looking. Daily conversations are full of weaknesses, and you have to train yourself to listen to them. First of all, you have to show interest. Listening motivates people to speak more. 2. Discover the miserable child inside the man. Most weaknesses begin in childhood before a person has defensive techniques, so knowing the needs of the person in childhood gives you a strong entrance to identify their weaknesses. 3. Look for contradictions. The apparent trait often hides its opposite. A person who exaggerates the show of audacity is often a coward, and those who boast of piety are often obscene. Many hardliners yearn for adventure and renewal, and shy people wish for someone who pays attention to them and cares about them. 4. Discover the weak link in the series. In your search for weaknesses, you are sometimes interested in finding the person and not the trait. In our world, there are people behind the scenes who move the scene and have enormous influence over the people who stand at the top of power. 5. Satisfying empty hearts. The 2 basic types of thoughts of feelings that you have to fill are the creak and the unhappiness. The losers yearn for social appreciation, and the unhappy you have to recognize the roots of their unhappiness, and both of them are the least able people to hide their weaknesses, and your ability to satisfy them gives you power. 6. Take advantage of unbridled emotions, which the owners cannot control, so you can be the advisor to control them. Your enemy has secrets to hide and ideas that he doesn't like people to have, but they appear in ways he can't control. Somewhere in his mind, heart, or lust, he has a crack of weakness. Once you discover him and enter into him the right key, you will find him submitting to you with his consent and will. Discover the key to personality in everyone you know. It's the art of getting people to do what you want them to do, an art that doesn't require strength as much as skill. and training. Every will is driven by a motive that varies according to the inclination of its owner. There are only a few people who do not submit to a pagan. Some worship fame, others are obsessed with possession and self-interest, and the majority are subject to lusts. Skill is to know and subdue each person's idolatry. Knowing the source of the motives that move a person is like having the key to subdue their will. 34. Never be inferior in your actions. Act like a king. Treat yourself like a king. The niche you place for yourself is often the one you place on us. Dealing with vulgarity and lowliness ultimately brings you contempt for those around you, as evoked as kings who commit themselves to pride and reverence and force people to look at them with great desire. Elevate your actions so that people see that you were born to be king. Leaders who dispel the differences between themselves and their masses by immersion and intimacy and courtship gradually lose their ability to reap loyalty, fear, or love from their subjects and find nothing but contempt and disdain for them. At first, when we were children, we were all filled with energy and enthusiasm, wishing a lot and feeling that everything we wished for would come true. In our early career, we often have this enthusiasm and expect that we will achieve a lot, but gradually failure and frustration affect us and set limits to what we wish and expect, and over time the limits we impose on ourselves take root and reduce the horizons of our ambition. The remedy for this contraction in the horizons of our ambition is to train ourselves and force it to the contrary, that is, to minimize the impact of failure on us, to ignore the limits imposed on us by reality, and to learn anew to demand so much and trust that it will be achieved for us as children do. The crown strategy is based on a simple sequence of actions and results. If we believe that our destiny is to achieve great achievements, those around us feel this certainty and influence them like the effect of the aura that surrounds the king's crown. People will think that we have reasons to build this certainty on ourselves. Those who wear the crown seem to be indifferent to any duties from within that determine what they should ask for or expect to achieve, and people see it in them and do not impose limits on them either. Reflect on happy children who ask for what they want and their demands are fulfilled. History describes many people who did not inherit much status by birth, but who were able, using the crown strategy and with their deep belief in their abilities, to achieve the status they wished for. The crown distinguishes you from others, but it is you who make this distinction real by acting differently, by highlighting the difference and distance between you and others. Put it on your head and people will see you differently. They will see you calm and at the same time confident in yourself. Never show your fears or diminish your reverence as you beg for the crown, because it will appear inappropriate for you and that others are more deserving of it than you. And do not wait for anyone to crown you. The emperors crown themselves. Each person has to look to others royal in his own style. Make your actions show you that even if you are not a king, you deserve to be a king. Be upscale in your actions, noble in your beliefs and opinions, and work to prove with all your actions that you really deserve to be king. 35. Master the art of choosing the right timing. Never appear hasty as this suggests that you are reckless and unable to be fooled by your feelings or the timing of events. Always be patient and careful so that others can see your confidence that things will eventually come to you. Be like an investigator who is confidently anticipating the right moment. You touch the events and you bend yourself when the time is not right. And when the moment of capture comes, strike hard and without hesitation. Napoleon Bonaparte said, we can reclaim places, but we can't restore time. Keys to power. Timing is an artificial thing we invented to help us endure the infinite expansion of time and the universe, and to make life more suitable for us as human beings. And since we are the ones who invented this concept, we can so much that once we manipulate it or obey it. Time in childhood is slower, longer, and accommodates a lot, while in adulthood it accelerates and narrows terribly. When you understand that the stress of daily emotions makes time accelerate around you, it will make it easier for you to see that if you control your emotions towards the events you are experiencing, you will be be able to slow down the time and do what you want. That is, changing the way you deal with things prolongs your sense of what you have. From time in the future opens up opportunities and options that fear and anger deprive you of and make you patient, and this is an indispensable condition for mastering the art of timing. There are 3 types of timings that you have to deal with. 1, continuation time. This type is extended and takes years, so you have to manage it patiently and carefully. 2, time of coercion. It is the limited and short time that you can use as a weapon of attack to disturb the timings of your opponents. 3, closing time. When you wait to execute your plans quickly and efficiently. Hovers high in the sky, silently waiting patiently to see everything with its piercing gaze, and the prey on earth does not know that it is watching it. But when the favorable moment comes, it pounces at a lightning speed that cannot be tested, and before frisbait knows what is happening to it, its claws are more like a hook that it has carried and climbed into heaven. People's destinies are like rivers exposed to tides. When the tide comes, they overflow with wealth and luck. When it recedes, the ship of their lives falters and strikes deeply into shallowness and misery. 36. Despise the things you can't have. Ignoring them is the best revenge of wisdom. Paying attention to a trivial problem that brings it to light, gives it importance, determines the size of your enemy with the attention you give him, and often the mistakes you make get worse as much as you make to correct them. Let things correct themselves, and if you want something and can't achieve it, show your contempt for it. Your status increases as much as you show it from the elevation. Remember, you choose to let things bother you, and you can also choose to ignore your opponent and look at them with contempt and look at them as not worthy of your attention. That's a strong step, because what doesn't respond to you doesn't draw you into absurd reactions, and your dignity won't be hurt. The best lesson to discipline a mosquito that bothers you is not to give it attention, and if it is difficult to ignore it, you can secretly conspire to get rid of it. Without making a mistake, give a larger size to an annoying insect that will leave you or die alone. If you find yourself lured to waste time and effort in such small things, you only have to blame yourself. Learn to use the weapon of contempt and ignore anyone who cannot pose a long-term threat to you. Your concern for anyone makes you their partner in some kind of relationship and makes you move with every action or reaction they do, thereby losing the initiative. Your attention to others, even if fighting them puts you under their influence. Using the weapon of ignorance gives you great power, because it makes you control the terms of the conflict and makes the war start and continue on your terms. And that is the best preparation to show power. Idris Shah said, "The man, kick him and insult him, and he may forgive you and forgive you. But if you ignore him, you will inevitably provoke his hatred and hostility to you." Powertrain keys. Desire control often leads to the opposite effects you desire. Your desire for a woman makes you follow her and tends to be anywhere you go, and generates a desire to evade you, showing you your interest in someone who alienates them from you, because the strength of your desire and concern for others makes them feel apprehensive and sometimes afraid. Your inability to control your desires shows you to people weak, frivolous, and miserable. You have to turn your back on whoever you want, ignore her, and show her that you are ascetic to her. This will make those who want to draw their attention to them get angry and want to draw your attention to you, or in retaliation for you. If the reason is attention, it means that you have cut the first half from seducing whoever you want. But if you want to take revenge on you and teach you a lesson, you will have confused her mind and lured her to play your way. Exaltation is the characteristic of kings. What the king pays attention to takes legitimacy and presence, and what he ignores and turns his back on seems to have been erased from existence. You have to show people from time to time that your life won't be affected by their loss. If ignoring strengthens your power, then on the other hand, increased attention weakens you. Your excessive attention to a trivial enemy makes you trivial, and over time your hostility to him increases in value and rises. We have a lot of desire to justify our mistakes, but the more we try, the more complicated things get, and sometimes it is wise to ignore them altogether. Instead of focusing absurdly on problems and their complexity, show how afraid you are of their consequences and are affected by the suffering they cause you. Deal with them by raising the luxury and not concede to admit that you see it as a problem. There are many ways to implement this strategy. One, there is a sour grape method. It means that when you have a desire for something and know that you will not get it, you do not show others your eagerness for it, but you act as if it has never been taken lightly. When someone inferior to you attacks you, reduce people's attention to them by showing them as if you haven't even noticed their presence, by pointing your face away or politely answering their question as if you hadn't paid attention to their rudeness. 37. Always learn how to dazzle the eyes. Use dazzle and symbols in appearance and performance. This gives you an aura of power that takes the hearts of everyone who sees you. You have to create for yourself a festive atmosphere full of eye-catching things and imposing your presence. Their fascination with you will blind them to the nature of your movements for power. You can harness impressions to your advantage, mastering an integrated visual image that gives you a new situation. Keys to power. Defending your opinion of words puts you at risk because words don't always hit their target. Words that others use to convince us may suggest other meanings, and when we think about them, they can lead us to situations that are the opposite of what they wanted. It may also happen that some of their words insult us because we have repercussions that the speaker does not know, but what we see reaches its purpose without getting into the maze of words. It immediately excites our feelings and leaves no room for thought and skepticism. It is like music that reaches us without the need for rationality and logic. Remember that words put you on the defensive, and your attempt to justify your power and abilities is questioned by people. Scenes and impressions impose themselves as a fait accompli. Words lead to controversy and disagreement, while dazzling scenes bring people together on common obedience, which is necessary for power. Always take care of preparing your appearance and objects as if you were drawing a painting. Colors have great symbolic effects. Emotions are greatly influenced by what we see. People are greatly influenced by the superficial appearances of things. The emir should always devote times of the year to distracting people's minds and keeping them from their reality with celebrations and dazzling scenes. 38. Be convinced of what you want and act on what others. Showing you to differ from what is common by actions and words and promoting new ideas that are alien to your society makes people feel that you despise them and transcend them and make them look for ways to destroy you. The safest thing is to blend in with people and show respect for their traditions. Your liberated and advanced ideas only appear to the characteristics of your friends and those who can appreciate your genius. For long periods of time, I refrained from saying what I believe in and saying what I don't believe. If it happened sometimes and I told the truth, I would make sure to put it in the middle of a lot of lies so that no one could discover them. Keys to power. We all resort to lying and sometimes to hiding our true feelings because it is socially impossible for us to reveal everything that is in our chests. From an early period of our lives, we learn to tell the angry and those who have a creak in themselves what they want to hear so as not to embarrass and provoke them. We all believe within ourselves what we want, but from the outside we wear masks that make people accept them among themselves. The reason why rational proofs fail to change people's convictions is that most of them carry their ideas and values as they inherited them without thinking about them and develop feelings towards them over time and share them with those they love. So people do not want to change what they are used to, and when someone embarrasses them with proofs or actions, they feel angry and want to take revenge. Those who are wise and handsome learn that they can act and speak according to prevailing standards without having to be convinced of them from within. Herd members renounce black sheep because they don't know for sure if these sheep are actually their own. 39. Make the water turbid water to catch fish. Anger and emotion at serious strategic mistakes that lose your status. You must always adhere to sobriety and objectivity. But if you can anger your enemy and lose his temper while you keep your calm and reverence, because that will give you a huge superiority over him. Face your enemy with whatever you see as threatening his pride until he loses his temper, and you can move him like a puppet. Remember that agitation and anger do not deter others and do not gain your loyalty, and it comes with nothing but that people doubt your steadfastness and power and show your weakness, and the repetition of these seizures portends the end of your status. That's the bottom line. When the water is stagnant, your opponents will have time and space to conspire, and they will have the initiative and control, so you have to move the stagnant water to force the fish to the surface. Pay your opponents before they have time to prepare, and don't leave the initiative in their hands. And the best way to do that is to manipulate feelings they can't control, such as pride, love, hatred, and hatred. Sun Tzu said, "The ruler should never equip armies out of anger, and the commander should never enter a war just for revenge." Keys to power. People often look at angry people with a kind of irony because their reactions are usually not commensurate with the situations they cause, and because they exaggerate their taking things seriously and appreciating the insults they have experienced. These people are very sensitive to any disdain and take it comically as targeting them personally, and more comically they believe that their expression of anger indicates their strength and arrows. The truth is quite the opposite. Cruelty and fighting are not strength, but rather evidence of frustration and helplessness. People may temporarily fear you when you get angry, but in the end they lack respect for you. And your opponents realize that it's easy to eliminate someone like you who doesn't control themselves. The most appropriate thing is not to suppress your anger and emotions, because repression depletes energy and pushes a person to commit more follies, but to change your perception of things, to realize that nothing in a game of power or in social dealings is personal. Every event is governed by a series of grooves that precede it by a long time, and our anger often comes not because of the current situation, but because of problems that affected us during childhood, such as the treatment of parents and others with us, and because of the frustrations and heartbreak we have suffered. We often think that someone died is the cause of our anger, but in fact it is often much more complicated than that, and goes beyond what any particular person has done against us. If, for example, you see that someone is angry and exceeds what you did to them in response, remind yourself that their anger does not belong exclusively to you, and that the cause is greater than that, and is due to many wounds in their childhood that you know nothing about, and that you should not bother yourself with understanding. And you have to look at the anger in front of you not as a personal grudge against you, but as a move of power, or as an attempt to control you, etc. This change in your perception of things will allow you to see the course clearly and provide your energy to act and move. And instead of consuming yourself and responding to the emotions of others, you will see that their loss of control benefits you. You will keep your nerves and the integrity of your thinking while they lose their nerves. Anger reduces your choices, and without the right choices you can't have power. Once you've trained yourself to look at everything that happens to you as not holding you personally, and to control your emotions towards everything you're facing, you've put yourself in a situation that makes it easier for you to gain a lot of power, because it will enable you to control other people's feelings and influence their actions. Pond. When the water is stagnant, the fish dive reassuringly to the bottom. For each time the water moves strongly, they climb to the surface, and when it moves with greater force, that angers them, so they move adrift and bite what they may find on their way, and from it the bait and hook that I prepared for them. When your opponent is sharp-tempered, work to provoke him, even if he is arrogant, and encourages his false pride in himself. The ingenuity in getting your opponent to move is to make a position that tempts your opponent to move. An accomplished commander lures his opponent with the right bait and then attacks him with elaborate blows. 40. Despise free food. Beware of what may be given to you for free, as it may be a way to deceive you or to embarrass and morally oblige you. Free yourself from this burden and pay generously for everything you see as valuable, and don't skimp because stingy people never achieve power. Be generous and spend from your money freely, because generosity is the secret of power and its beating heart. In the world of power, you have to judge anything for its price, because everything already has a price. What is given to you for free often has a psychological price, such as notifying you of the duty to the person who gives you the gift, giving up a certain level of what you ask to work with, and the creak that concessions bring. Those in power are keen on the most important thing they have, which is their independence in decision making and the opportunity to maneuver freely by paying the full price that this frees them from complications and problems. When you want to take, you have to give first. Giving you a proper gift to someone makes them feel a sense of duty to you, and generosity softens people's souls and makes them easier to deceive. When generosity are known for you, you will impress others and make them not feel the games of power you play. There are people who have a destructive desire that prevents them from spending money, and those who are quite the opposite of those who have power, and you have to learn to discover them to keep their toxic effects away from your life. And their most important types: 1. Greedy whales. Those who do not see any human side of money, behave harshly and coldly, and see in their dealings only spending and revenues, and see others only as tools or obstacles in the way of seeking more money. 2. Bargaining slaves. Powerful people judge things by their price, but price means not only money, but also peace of mind and maintaining reverence, which is exactly what bargaining slaves cannot do. These people spend most of their time looking for the cheapest price. These people can infect you, so beware of them. 3. Sadists. Sadists deal with money very badly and use it to show their power over others. A sadist is a person who acts when he spends money to buy something as if he had the right to torture and insult the seller. 4. Generosity without account. Generosity has specific functions in the game of power, which is that it attracts people to it and softens them towards you and makes them your allies. But you have to use the money strategically and spend it for a purpose in your mind. Generous people without account spend money because they need to love people and impress them. Only the fool skimps when he is great, and nothing destroys the authority of the high-ranking people more than stinginess. So in order to win the affection of the people, you have to resist your love of money and give them gifts, because just as iron magnets attract, gifts attract the hearts of men. 41. Avoid replacing a man of great. People respect the original and despise tradition. If you are the son of a great person, you will have to do many times his effort so that your image is not lost in his shadows. Never commit to a past that is not of your own making. Establish your own identity by changing the course of those who preceded you. Despise his heritage and bury him with him so that you can make your own distinctive shine. Machiavelli said, when governance became hereditary, children became corrupt and did not try to achieve the glory or virtue of their parents, and they felt that what needed to be competed in was laziness and indulgence in prostitutes and pleasures. In some kingdoms of Bengal and Sumatra, the king's subjects killed him after several years of his rule, a ritual to renew life in the kingdom and to prevent the king from tyranny and power. The past prevents the young hero from making his new world and finds it obligatory for him to continue to do what the father was doing even after his death. Power is to fill the void left by the demise of the power of the past. And when you remove from your shoulders in the way of angels the image created by your father, you will find plenty of space to create your new order. In order to emphasize the distance that separates you from your predecessors and announce the changes to the audience, you have to use symbols. Sometimes you think you've been separated from your father or ancestor, and then you find that you've spoken older and closer to the father you've always rebelled against. Casts a heavy shadow on his children and enslaves him with the past for a long time after his death, and crushes their souls looking forward to discovering the new. He pushes them to follow in his footsteps, and his tricks to lure you are many. and you have to get rid of his influence at every crossroads and get rid of his heavy shadow on you. Be careful not to replace a great man, so you have to do many times his best to surpass him. People also look at those who follow in the footsteps of others as if they were a copycat and would not be able to lift this burden from their shoulders. It's rare for people to look for new ways to excel and fame, so you'll find that there are plenty of roads that are less crowded with competitors. You may see them as thorny roads, but they are the shortcut ways to achieve glory. 42. Hit the shepherd and the sheep disperse. You will always find behind great turmoil one hateful and arrogant person who can promise others his hatred. If you leave these people free, they will spread the darkness of their hearts among people. Don't wait until the problems they cause get worse, and don't try to co-opt or appease them because you can't. Remove their influence by getting rid of them or by isolating them from people. Hit the shepherd who caused the problem, and the sheep gathered around him will be dispersed. In the past, we saw nations controlled by a king and a few ministers, and only courtmen had power. But with progress and the spread of democracy, power has spread and is in the hands of many. While practicing family therapy, Dr. Milton discovered that there was always a specific person within the family who provoked chaos and turmoil, and he would isolate the instigator or troublemaker by keeping him away from others, a few feet away from others in his session. Gradually, family members were aware that this isolated person was the source of their difficulties. Once you have identified the instigator and drawn the attention of others, you have achieved a major achievement of any strategy game. That is to isolate the forces of the opponent. In chess, you try to besiege the king. The best way to isolate an opponent is to cut him off from the base of his power. The wisdom of hitting the shepherd is that it scares the sheep and subjugates them to you more than you imagine. If you want a bow, take the strongest. If you shoot an arrow, let it be the longest, and to hit the knight towards the Persians. And if you want to annihilate a gang, kill the president, because it is difficult to kill everyone. 43. Do not take people by oppression, but by courtship and persuasion. Tyranny and the oppression of people inevitably in the end. Learn to lure others to do what you want. Whoever you lure by seduction remains a loyal follower of you. Seduction requires that you understand the psychology and weaknesses of those you are dealing with. Soft resist them by manipulating their feelings and with everything that intimidates them. Ignoring the feelings of your followers develops within them hatred and hatred against you. Take the time to learn about the feelings and psychological influences of those you deal with, and to know that the use of force increases the resistance of others, and the heart is the key to reaching most people, because most of us, like children, are governed by our feelings. In order to soften the hearts of those you deal with, you have to use intensity and tolerance. Alternately, move their fears, but do not forget to arouse feelings of love, freedom, family, etc. Once they submit to you, you will find them allies who strongly support you throughout their lives. Keys to power. In the game of power, you will always find around you people who do not care about helping you unless it benefits them, and if you do not have what you offer them, they will treat you dryly. Remember that the secret of persuasion is to soften the feelings of others and gently dissolve their dryness. Fascinated them with a double weapon, an effect on their feelings and a manipulation of their thoughts. The best way to do this is to shock the expectations of others. When you warm people to despair and expect them to expect the most severe pain and suffering, and then give them anything that delights them or releases their fears and gives them security, you gain great power over them. It is enough for you to show some symbolic gestures in order to win people's affection and attachment to you, doing a job that suggests your interest in them, your self-sacrifice for them, and sharing their pain and suffering makes you an example, and an example in their eyes. The quickest way to take people's hearts is to show them what will happen to them by following what you call them to, because interest is the strongest motivation. The best performers are artists, thinkers, and those who can formulate their words poetically. Finally, you have to learn to play numbers and learn that increasing the number of your supporters indicates that your power is firmly established. And you have to take allies and friends from all social levels and make sure that the day will come when you need the services of every man in them. People build walls that separate them from others. Never try to break through these walls by force, because that will only put new walls between you and them. There are doors within the walls that permeate you to their hearts and minds. Inside each whole door to enter the key. Find the right door and it will make it easier for you to get into them. The hardest step in convincing a person is to know what's going on in their heart, to pick out the words that suit them. That is why anyone who wants to be persuasive before the throne must know what pleases and alienates the ruler, what he wishes for and worries, so that he can reach his heart. 44. Strip your enemy and make him lose his balance with the mirroring strategy. Mirrors reflect reality but also distort it, and are therefore ingenious tools of cunning and deception. The mirror strategy is to mimic the actions of others, to confuse and intimidate them, to lose their balanced thinking, to fascinate them, to make them feel that you understand what is deep within their souls, or to teach them a lesson that will make them taste what their hands have gained. Mirror strategy is a highly effective strategy that few escape its power. Deceptive mirrors. When we look in the mirror, we often only see the image that relaxes and satisfies us, and we do not like to scrutinize so as not to see wrinkles and blemishes. But if we focus carefully, we will see ourselves as others see us, that is, as people like us like others. This feeling will frighten you because it will make you see yourself from the outside without the spirit, thoughts, and feelings that distinguish you from others. That is, you will see yourself as something and not as oneself. The mirror strategy is to transform ourselves into what looks like a mirror in which people see their image that frightens or fascinates them. The first way, imitating the actions and movements of others and drawing a picture of themselves comic and devoid of spirit to confuse them and lose their nerves. The second way, that people see in us their desires and wishes, and that tempts them and strips them of their defenses. Either way, others will lose their balance, whether by anger or fascination, where you will have the ability to manipulate them or entice them for what you want. This effect has great power because it deals with the deepest and most primitive emotions in man. In the world of power, there are 4 basic effects of mirror strategy. 1 neutral effect. When you do what your enemy does and track his movements as accurately as you can, he will not be able to realize your intentions because your mirror will blind him to your movements. 2. Shadow strategy. It is to be like a shadow that reflects every move your opponent makes without seeing you. This enables you to gather information that will benefit you in neutralizing their strategies and thwarting every step they take, and this gives you a deep understanding of their habits and methods. 3. Narcissistic influence. It is to look deep into others and recognize their deepest desires, values, tastes, and feelings, and make them see them in you as if you were an image of themselves embodied outside of them. That is simply the ability to emulate others, not physically, but psychologically. 4. Moral influence. When people oppress you, it will not benefit you to argue with them or reproach them, because this will only lead them to more justification and stubbornness. Gratian said, "Facts are often seen and rarely heard, and the moral influence of Almeria is the best way to show what you want to others by deeds, not words, and you can teach them a lesson by making them taste what their hands have gained." The moral effect is to hold others to what they have done against you exactly, so that you teach them in a way that they will not forget the extent of the pain and harm caused by their behavior. That is, to act as a mirror that shows them the qualities that they should be ashamed of in themselves and shows them how foolish and barbaric they are. Most of those who use this method are educators, psychologists, and others who have to deal with bad and unconscious behaviors, and this is the mirror of the teacher. It will be very useful to learn how to reflect to others their behavior in a way that makes them feel embarrassed and remorseful. 5. Illusion effect. Mirrors are completely deceptive, and when you look at them, it seems like you are looking at the real world, even though you are only looking at a plate of glass that does not reflect the images for what they really are. Everything in the mirrors looks reversed. The effect of delusion is to make an elaborate imitation of a person place, or anything so that others think it is the real thing. And that is the technique that fraudsters use to deceive people, and it has other applications in all areas that need to be camouflaged and disguised. And that's it. J. Mirror of the Deceiver. 45. Invite people to change but don't change. We all theoretically understand the necessity of renewal, but in reality, in our daily dealings, we hold firmly to everything we are used to. The imposition of renewal shocks people and pushes them to revolt. When you are new to power or alien to its society, you must have yourself a base that supports you, and therefore you need to respect the traditions of your subjects, and without that they will not follow you. If I see that renewal is necessary, show it as a development stemming from the past and heritage. Never be concerned with people's tendency to settle down and maintain what they are used to. It's a dominant and deep feeling. Don't let your fascination with an idea blind your insight. Just as you can't get people to see things as you see them, you can't force the future on them with changes that hurt them, because in doing so you will only reap from them objection and rebellion. If you see that change and reform are inevitable, be prepared to deal with people's resistance to it, and make sure that the changes appear as an extension of the past and the usual. Put some fashionable honey in the medicine of change so that people can tolerate drinking it. The lesson is simple. The past has power over people, and memories always seem greater than the present. When people shatter what they are familiar with, they are left with a spiritual emptiness and a sense of the absurdity of life. The demise of what people reassure is born in them fear. Never stir these fears and quote from the past, no matter how far away the weight and legitimacy may be, to make the present you create seem to them comfortable and composed. You always have to remember that nothing is harder, more dangerous, and more likely to fail than to set people new systems and norms, says Machiavelli. Keys to power. People's souls are full of contradictions. One of these contradictions is that despite people's love for change and their knowledge of the importance of reform for them as individuals or institutions, they are disturbed and dismayed if change touches their people. They trust that change is a necessity and that changes rid them of boredom and stagnation, but deep down they hold on to the past. Another strategy to mitigate change is to ostensibly declare your support for and respect for the values of the past, and to look like a fanatic of tradition, and then people will not notice how much your actions contradict exactly what you say. It is those who have power who are in perfect harmony with the spirit of their time, and that ideas prior to their time will not be understood and will be interpreted by people, because what people do not understand frightens and confuses them. Do not challenge the spirit of your time, and if your age is an era of strife and turmoil, you will gain a lot of power by calling for a return to the past and adherence to traditions and constants. In periods of recession, you should raise the banner of reform and change, but carefully and with anticipation of the objections that may face you. 46. Don't overdo it with showing your superiority and grace. It's dangerous for those around you to see you as distinct from them, and the most dangerous is to show them free of flaws and weaknesses. Envy breeds enmity in their hearts, and it is cunning to show from time to time a defect that does not harm you in your personality or potential until envy pushes you away from you and makes others see you as one of them. Any human being with shortcomings, for only God and the dead do not sin. You can easily protect yourself from the envy of the masses by showing them that you share their way and values, taking allies with those who are less than you, elevating them to positions of power so that you can gain their support when you need them, never boasting of your wealth, and treating others as if they were above you and more predestined. Never be silly to think that you impress others when you boast of the potential that distinguishes you from them. Notifying others of their inferiority breeds bitter admiration and envy that eats their hearts until they undermine your power in ways you can't imagine. Plutarch said, "Envy alone among all the vices and diseases of souls cannot be recognized." Keys to power. Human beings cannot tolerate feelings of inferiority, and inferiority And when we meet someone who surpasses us in skill, talent, or power, we often feel a bit of annoyance and tension because their superiority threatens our bloated sense of self and makes us feel that our potential is modest and that we are not as genius as we think of ourselves. This feeling cannot continue without generating something of hatred and envy towards the person who makes us feel inferior. But envy is his misfortune in three things. One, it never pleases its owner and does not push him to make an effort to achieve what the envied person has achieved. Two, the owner cannot remove it from his chest and reveal it to others, because this brings contempt to those around him. Three, confessing to envy reveals a person's sense of inferiority and inferiority. Therefore, envy remains buried in the lower depths of the soul and comes out in an indirect form, such as looking for something to criticize the envious, or that he has achieved his power by cheating and deception. If you can't discredit him, you exaggerate his praise and compliment, which is another way to express envy in a non-insignificant way. There are several ways to help you get rid of malicious and destructive feelings of envy. One, accept the idea that there are people who are superior to you in something. Two, when you have the power to confess that those whom you have overtaken and surpassed envied you, they may not show it, but it is inevitable. Three, you have to admit that those who envy you will keep you in secret and put in your way obstacles that you will not see. It is difficult to eradicate envy from people's souls if it settles within them, and easier to prevent it from the beginning. It is your inattention to your actions that provokes envy against you, and once you recognize the actions and qualities that provoke the envy of others, you prevent yourself from this silent danger that may slowly destroy you. The most dangerous moment in the world of power is the moment of achieving success, promotion, or sudden victory, because it will provoke against you the envy of your former comrades. Political power in any form generates envy, and the best way to push this intuition is not to appear opportunistic and ambitious. Pay close attention to indirect expressions of envy. Whoever overpraises you will no doubt envy you. Also, those who over-criticize or slander you often do so out of envy, so don't get involved with them in conflicts that underestimate you. Take revenge on all these envious people by ignoring their presence and trivialities. Quotes show from time to time a deficiency in your personality that does not harm you, because the defect that the envier takes on the special person is that he has no defect, and therefore he will continue to examine you with the eye of the falcon for flaws, because this is his only consolation. Don't let him choose the poison that hurts you. Show he has a contrived slip in intelligence or enthusiasm that satisfies him and keeps you away from you and keep your glory Grazian. 47. Don't go beyond what you've planned. Learn to restrain your enthusiasm when you win. Moments of victory are often the most dangerous moments, and the enthusiasm for victory may push you to arrogance and overconfidence and make you exceed the goal that you have long strived to achieve. These excesses create for you many enemies that you cannot defeat. Don't let victory lose your rationality, because you won't find a substitute for rational and careful strategic planning. Set goals for yourself, and when you achieve them, don't get distracted or leave yourself to arrogance. Power has its own rhythms, and those who succeed in it are those who control the patterns and change them according to their will, confuse the calculations of others, and impose on them their rhythm. The euphoria of victory spoils you with this control in two ways. One, when you find that a specific format has caused you to succeed, you tend to repeat it and try to continue in the same direction without thinking about whether it is still achieving the best results for you. Two, success affects your thinking and makes you excited and feeling that nothing will defeat you and push you to make strong moves that eliminate your success. The lesson here is simple. The powerful change their rhythm, patterns, and trajectory and adapt them to the variables of the situation and learn improvisation, not letting the euphoria of impulsivity move them, but rather distancing themselves and thinking about their next steps. Those who achieve a round of successes may become infected with a repulsion and a kind of rabies, which may lead them to take dangerous moves. The rhythm of power often requires alternating between power and cunning, as overpower breeds resistance, and excessive cunning makes people discover it, no matter how ingenious. In conclusion, the moment of pause is of great effective importance because the conclusion of things is imprinted in the mind as an exclamation point, and there is no better moment to conclude words and actions than the moment of victory. If you go too far after it, your influence decreases, and in the end you may end up defeated and lost. And as lawyers say, always stop while you are victorious. Machiavelli said, republics and kingdoms must be convinced of victory, because their desire to achieve more generally leads to loss. The arrogance of victory leads the powerful to describe the enemy with insulting and despicable descriptions, and this misleads them in their actions as well as in their words, because when this false hope captures them, it makes them go beyond those who planned it and pushes them to sacrifice the good that is within their reach for the better that they may not be able to achieve. 48. Always keep up with events and don't freeze in a specific mold. Your rigidity on a specific style enables your enemy to see your movements, read what you're planning, and makes it easier to attack you. Plan everything in advance so that you see things clearly, but don't allow your enemies to understand what you're doing by keeping you moving and keeping up with events, and to know that reality is not always certain and that laws take on new forms. The best way to protect yourself is to always stay like water flowing and not take on a specific shape. Never bet on stability or permanence of conditions because everything changes. Keys to power. People are constantly changing the norms they inherited from their parents, and this change suggests vitality and activity, and what does not change freezes in specific molds that suggest death to us and generate a desire to destroy it. Those with power often show in their youth tremendous creative abilities in creating a new reality that has different social norms, and their society thirsty for renewal rewards them with power. But things often get really complicated when they grow up and tend to stagnate and maintain what has been achieved for them and give up their dream of renewal. In the end, people tell them to leave us and leave the arena to others other than you who are more youthful and bully, with whom we feel hope and satisfaction. The freezing of those in power in the molds of the past makes their continuation as comic as the mellow fruits that have come to fall. Power only lasts when it is flexible. Non-inertia does not mean losing the body. Nothing can be without body. Your need for flexibility increases as you age because people in their old age tend to stagnate and stick to the ways they are used to. Adapting to new situations means having your own independent opinion and not being subject to the advice that others dictate to you. The best form of organization is to remain flexible and in line with changes, because the ways of victory are not repeated but are constantly changing. Military power has no formation, just as water has no permanent body. The ability to adapt and change style to keep up with the adversary is what we call genius.